Welcome to #Webinar Wednesday Special Edition, Ben-Gurion Day in the USA. Hello, my name is Doug Sesserman, and I am privileged to serve as the CEO of Americans for Ben-Gurion University. A for BGU is our acronym and nickname. And welcome to the more than 550 of you who registered for this first ever event. Today's program will be webinar style hybrid virtual experience. And what that means is that I'm speaking to you live from my virtual office in New York City, while some aspects of this program were also pre-recorded. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Ben-Gurion Day is celebrated annually in Israel on the date of his yahrzeit, the date of Ben-Gurion's passing. In fact, as this program is streaming, there is a parallel program in Hebrew happening right now at BGU's main campus in Beersheba. And as I mentioned before, today we are thrilled to be bringing this holiday to the USA for the very first time. Thank you for joining us for this milestone event. We hope that you will feel that it was not only educational and meaningful, but also a very good use of your time. David Ben-Gurion is so much more than a significant historical figure. I call him the number 2 Jew all time. And with all sincerity, he represents the kind of leader the world needs today. His legacy and memory are critical to a renewed sense of modern Zionism for the 21st century. Thank you for joining us and honoring him today. Before we get started, I want to thank the more than 20 community partner organizations who helped us get the word out for this event. We can't do our work without you. Please take a look at the names of the organizations on the screen. I also want to recognize the hard work done behind the scenes by our staff, led by Lenore Levine, our Director of Programs and Experiences, as well as our stellar marketing team, led by Hillel Hurwitz, Tally Goldschaft, and Kara Bortman. I also want to thank the important contributions made by Jeff Rum, an alum of our Zinn Fellow Leadership Program, and his firm, CMR Ignite. I'd now like to introduce a video about what we call the movement.
Israel's founder, first prime minister, and namesake of our university, David Ben-Gurion was a visionary who led by dreaming big. He proclaimed, "It is in the Negev that the creativity and pioneering vigor of Israel shall be tested." Take a look at the remarkable innovations coming out of the Negev today. There is no question that David Ben-Gurion's vision is becoming a reality. Ben-Gurion University of the Negev is a leading model of higher education and multidisciplinary research. It is the engine fueling growth for the entire Negev region. And even more than that, BGU is positively impacting lives throughout Israel and around the world. We are Americans living in the diaspora, united by a common cause. At Americans for Ben-Gurion University, we are building a movement that reframes the narrative about Israel, from endlessly arguing about what's wrong to rallying around what's right, all manifested by the remarkable work of BGU and the wondrous potential of the Negev. Each year, Israel celebrates Ben-Gurion Day by honoring the life and vision of David Ben-Gurion. The holiday pays tribute to Ben-Gurion's legacy as a leader, statesman, and architect of the modern-day Jewish state. And today, let's celebrate Ben-Gurion Day in the USA.
Thank you. Without David Ben-Gurion's dreams and historic accomplishments, Israel would not be the incredible, innovative startup nation and thriving country that we all love today. Before we take a peek inside the new Ben-Gurion archives, I'm thrilled to introduce special remarks from Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, who made these remarks earlier today as part of a celebration ceremony at Ben-Gurion University.
נשיא אוניברסיטת בן גוריון, הפרופסור דניאל חיימוביץ', סגל האוניברסיטה, וכמובן מקבלות ומקבלי האות, בני המשפחות, מכובדיי כולם. אם לרגע אחד יכולנו לצרף למעמד הזה את דוד בן גוריון כאורח, היינו מספקים לו לפחות שתי סיבות לקורת רוח וגאווה. הסיבה הראשונה, אתם, אוניברסיטת בן גוריון שבנגב, מוסד אקדמי בעל שם עולמי, שמבטא הלכה למעשה את מילוי ומימוש חזונו של הזקן. אוניברסיטה שאני מאוד אוהב באופן אישי, שהיא סמל למחקר פורץ דרך, למצוינות אקדמית, לידע נרחב בתחומים רבים מאוד, וכמובן למעורבות ועשייה חברתית מדהימים. בן גוריון היה שמח בוודאי לגלות שחזונו לאוניברסיטה, שאותו הוא הגדיר במילים מגדלור של מידע וידע לנגב, לישראל ולאומות העולם, כך הוא כתב. הוא שמנחה היום את עשייתה האקדמית, המדעית, החברתית והחינוכית של אוניברסיטת בן גוריון שבנגב. אך הייתה לו לבן גוריון עוד סיבה אחת לתחושת סיפוק וגאווה בלתי מבוטלת. או אולי 7 סיבות כאלו. אתם ואתם, מקבלות ומקבלי אות בן גוריון, ישראלים מעוררי השראה, המהווים המחשה יוצאת דופן למעורבות עמוקה, לנתינה רבת שנים, לדאגה אמיתית לעתידנו כמדינה וכחברה. אתם ישראל היפה. אתם, הזוכות והזוכים באות בן גוריון, אתם סמל למצוינות מקצועית בולטת, כל אחד בתחומו ובתחומה. בין אם מדובר בתחומי המדע, הביטחון, החברה והקהילה, הכלכלה, השוויון החברתי, התרבות, הסביבה, החינוך, כל אחד ואחד מכם, כל אחד מוכיח עד כמה חזונו של בן גוריון הופך לנגד עינינו למציאות. תודה לכם, מקבלות ומקבלי האותות, על שנים ארוכות שהם מופת לכולנו, ואני בטוח שלשליחותכם החשובה עוד נכונו אתגרים ופסגות נוספות. וכמובן תודה לאנשי סגל האוניברסיטה האהובה עליי, בהובלתך, פרופסור דניאל חיימוביץ', על עשייה אקדמית, מחקרית וחינוכית, יוצאת דופן בהיקפיה ובהשפעתה. שאו ברכה כולכם, עלו והצליחו.
Okay, you heard it here. BGU is President Herzog's favorite university in Israel. I'm not sure what the other 7 have to say about that. And by the way, they all do great work. Now we have something very special to share with all of you today. Thanks to an incredibly generous donation by the Canadian couple Max and Cindy Mintzberg, Ben-Gurion University has a brand new state-of-the-art Ben-Gurion archives on our campus at Sde Boker, Israel. You could call it Israel's Presidential Library, where you can actually step into the history, both in person as well as online, thanks to the generosity of David and Janet Pollock Foundation out of Los Angeles. With just a click of a button, you can see history and the building of the State of Israel come to life before your very own eyes. We're so proud to say that no matter what time of day and no matter where you are in the world, David Ben-Gurion's ageless ideas and lessons are now accessible to you whenever you need them. When you visit the archive's new exhibition hall in person, you can take a peek inside the life and mind of David Ben-Gurion through his intimate diary entries, which he wrote every day of his life, and much more. Please contact us at Americans for Ben-Gurion University to schedule an in-person visit for you, your family, or your favorite pro-Israel organization, church, synagogue, federation, etc., when they do missions to Israel. We love to host people who love Israel when they visit. But today, for the very first time, I'm thrilled for A4BGU to present the Ben-Gurion Archives through this video, brought to you by Dr. Adi Portuguese, the director of the Ben-Gurion Archives and the head of infrastructure and information systems for the study of Israel and Zionism at Ben-Gurion University.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Adi Portugues. I'm the head of the Ben-Gurion Archives. I welcome you to the Mintzberg building. This is where the Ben-Gurion Research Institute for the Study of Israel and Zionism stays, and the Ben-Gurion Archives. When you think about archive of founding father of the State of Israel and a research institute, you might think of a presidential library. And this is what we are. We have two branches for the building. The northern wing is where the research and teaching is being done, and the southern wing where the archive is.
The field of Israel studies, which is a growing and expanding field, has many fascinating aspects in it. To me, there are two that are particularly gripping. The first is the very idea of the creation of a Jewish state. When the idea was first broached in 1896 in Theodor Herzl's pamphlet, The State of the Jews, many of the people surrounding Herzl thought he had basically lost it. The idea seemed preposterous and crazy. As Herzl himself predicted in his diary, that preposterous and crazy idea became a very concrete historical reality within a short historical time span. In my own work, there's another question, however, which is even more fascinating to me, and perhaps an even more preposterous idea, and that is the idea that the Hebrew language could become a spoken language, a colloquial, and the basis for Hebrew culture, which is today the foundation of Israeli culture. One of the people most identified with both of these processes is, of course, David Ben-Gurion. He's most identified, perhaps, with that moment on May 14th of 1948 when he declared statehood of the young state of Israel, but he was no less crucial in being at the forefront of advancing Hebrew culture and having Hebrew become established as the basis for Israeli culture. So the fact that our institute and our university are named for him as we study these phenomena and these historical processes is more than appropriate.
Ben-Gurion wrote a diary from 1915 until 1971, almost an entry per day. This particular notebook is the notebook of the War of Independence. Begins on March 12 and ends up, you might be surprised, on May 14th, the day of the Declaration of Independence. Just to give you a hint about Ben-Gurion himself, he used to number every single page in his diary, and at the end, he used to fill an index of his own notebooks. The last day in this particular notebook ends up with the following words. At 1 p.m., the Provisional State Council meeting, we ratified the Declaration of Independence. In 4 p.m., the Declaration of Independence. There's a lot of joy and happiness in the country, and again, I am as a mourner as I was on November 29. Ben-Gurion is mourning because he knows what we are heading to, and this is the War of Independence. Another interesting letter that we have, a letter that David Ben-Gurion wrote to Rose Halperin, the leader of Hadassah Women. Ben-Gurion truly believed that in order to make the State of Israel prosper, we need to get the assistance of the Jewish world. So he writes her in Hebrew and he says, America was built by pioneers. Israel too will be built solely by bold and innovative pioneers. We need your pioneers. We need your experts. We need your scholars in order to come to the State of Israel and help us to build the country, to help us to make the State of Israel flourish.
So as you can see, we are in the seminar room at the Ben-Gurion Research Institute for the Study of Israel and Zionism. Right now there's a class here that is a part of the Woodman-Scheller International Master's Program, which is one of the important, almost flagships, I would say, of the Institute's work. We work on a number of different fronts in the Institute. Before I say a few words about the Institute itself, I want to contextualize it and point to the fact that in an academic world, in which the humanities and social sciences have in the past few years been shrinking and are in crisis, the field of Israel studies has actually been expanding. The Woodman-Scheller International Master's Program brings students from across the globe, from many, many different countries, who come together to study about Israeli society, Israeli history, Israeli culture, Israeli politics, and obtain a master's degree.
When I was looking up documents on Ben-Gurion's idea of using nuclear energy to make the desert bloom, and he's talking about nuclear energy. This is before the first nuclear reactor was designed for energy purposes. The world only knew of nuclear weapons, of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and he's not a science graduate. So he has the imagination to say, we can harness this, and the only way we're going to have enough water desalinated to make a desert bloom is through nuclear energy. Now this is spectacular. I mean, that kind of foresight just really gives me an insight into what kind of leadership Israel had, what kind of person Ben-Gurion himself was.
Well, I read a little bit about the Ben-Gurion before I came here, and our Ben-Gurion archives has Ben-Gurion's personal diary. We had one premise that everyone is Jewish, but everyone is from different place with different customs and languages and traditions. So how Israel observed them and make one entity as Israeli. So I thought that Israel would be a good case studies to learn about the observation and integration.
Throughout the years, many people wanted to come to the archive to know, to read, to figure out who Ben-Gurion was. Now, Ben-Gurion is not only the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, he is the founding father of the State of Israel. Then we came up with the idea of let's start and build an exhibition hall that will enable everyone to come over to read Ben-Gurion, to know much about Ben-Gurion, and I'm going to take you through some of the documents that we have here in the exhibition hall. People cannot go down into the archive and touch the primary sources of Ben-Gurion. So for that purpose, the exhibition hall is crucial, very important, and it enables as many people from all around the world, and Israel as well, to come and know who Ben-Gurion was. They get to know and get to understand better who Ben-Gurion was, and moreover, what the State of Israel is. When you think about Ben-Gurion archive, it's not a big archive. It's about 100 meters of shelving, which means 100,000 of documents. Out of these hundreds of thousands of documents, we needed to choose only few. Then we came up with around 60 topics, around 150 documents total here in this exhibit hall. First part in the exhibition hall is the timeline of the life of David Ben-Gurion. David Ben-Gurion was born in 1886. Our first station will be in 1905, when he first consult with his friend about when should I make an aliyah to the land of Israel. And it keeps on going in 10 stations. Each station is a document from the archive, of course, and we get to 1967. David Ben-Gurion passed away in December 1973. I'm going to take you to one of the documents here in the timeline. In 1956, David Ben-Gurion published an article in the government yearbook, and the topic is southwards. That was his vision about the Negev is the focal point of the newborn state of Israel. This is where all our future is lying in. Here are some citations from the document. In the south and in the Negev, the cradle of our nation stood. These are the weakest points and the strongest points of the state of Israel. Israel must go southwards in order to exist. Water and power, these are the two things that we are lacking in our country, in the north and especially in the south. One of the vast, interesting collections that we hold in the archive is the collection of correspondence. Letters that have been sent from Ben-Gurion to others, been sent from others to Ben-Gurion. And one of these fascinating letters is the letter of status quo. Just right before the UNGA resolution was taking place here in June 1947, a letter was sent by Ben-Gurion and two other prominent Zionist leaders. The idea was to get the acceptance of all the groups in the Jewish world to declare statehood. Now, this letter was sent to Agudat Israel, the ultra-Orthodox party, in order to make sure that we agree about certain ground when it comes to the Jewish state, which means that the state that will be established contains Jews, Christians, Muslims, other religions, secular Jews, religious Jews. All of these groups should live together. Ben-Gurion had two kinds of diaries. He had the notebook that he used to write on a daily basis, and he also had a pocket journal. This is his pocket journal from November 29, 1947. the UNGA resolution. He wakes up in the middle of the night, take off his pocket journal and write as follows. It's in Hebrew. The decision has been made. 33, 13 and 10. 33 for, obviously, 13 against and 10 abstained. And here he's giving his shopping list, his to-do list, government, name, capital city, budget, police, broadcast, military, services, bureaucracy, constitution, jurisprudence, ports, airports, districts, monetary, currency, and anthem. And then he goes back to sleep. A couple of years ago, we digitized all the documents in the archives and uploaded them to the website. Thanks to the generosity of David and Jenna Pollack Foundation, we created a new fascinating website. Just Google Ben-Gurion Archives, get inside, and you might find your relatives there.
I don't know. Sorry about that. I don't know about all of you, but that video really touched me. Thank you for everyone who put that together. He was quite a man, and we miss him dearly. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed that never before seen inside look of the new Ben-Gurion archives, and thank you, Adi, for being such a great tour guide and host and just all around mensch. David Ben-Gurion and his wife, Paula, had 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Today, it's an honor to welcome Dr. Mushi Ben-Eliezer, one of David Ben-Gurion's grandsons, for an intimate discussion that was pre-recorded about Israel's first prime minister and Mushi's grandfather. Dr. Moshe Ben-Eliezer was born in Israel in 1948, a few months before Israel's declaration of independence. In addition to being the grandson of Ben-Gurion, Mushi, as he likes to be known as, is the former chairman of the executive of the Ben-Gurion House in Tel Aviv, which, by the way, is also an amazing place to visit. Mushi attended high school in London, England, and following his military service in Israel, Mushi earned an undergraduate degree in psychology and sociology from the Hebrew University. After the Yom Kippur War, he spent 7 years in New York City, where he earned his PhD from NYU, specializing in semantics and specifically metaphors as definers of human, social, and political reality. During his studies, he served as the vice counsel for Soviet Jewry affairs, and to this day, Mushi views New York City as his second home. He returned to Israel in 1981 and had a varied career in military intelligence, public service, business, and for the last 20 years as a life and executive coach. He's a really terrific guy. Mushi is the author of 2 books about coaching, Supervision in Coaching and The Coacher's Helper, 115 Tools for Coaching. I think I need to reread that book, as well as a book of short stories about people, animals, and their relationships entitled, What Does the Ape Have to Say on Saturday Morning? Mushi has been married to his wife, Bunya, for 37 years, and she is a retired flight manager. They have 2 sons, Itai and Adam, and 4 grandchildren, Matan, Ori, Aliana, and baby Yehonatan. Mushi is an active athlete and an active reader, very avid reader, who loves dogs and music and enjoys cooking and entertaining friends over good whiskey. Sounds like a much well-deserved and earned retirement. Welcome, Mushi. We are so glad to have you with us here today. So welcome, everybody. I'm privileged today to have Dr. Mushi Ben-Eliezer with us, the grandson of David Ben-Gurion. Mushi, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So your grandfather, David Ben-Gurion, I lovingly refer to as the number 2 Jew all time. What was it like growing up as his grandson?
It's an easy question, but it's a difficult answer. It wasn't easy to grow up as Ben-Gurion's grandson, because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I mean, if you succeed, then obviously you succeed because you have Ben-Gurion's influence and genes. And if you fail, then how could you fail? Because you're Ben-Gurion's grandson. So it wasn't easy. If you allow me, I'll tell you a story, or two stories concerning that. I grew up in London in the early 60s. My father was with the defense mission in London at that time. And Ben-Gurion was flying to Israel from the States and was going to stop in London. And they told me to go to the airport and meet him. And I said, there's no way I'm going to go because, the press is going to cover it. And, I don't want the kids to know that I'm Ben-Gurion's grandson. No, I promise you that nobody's going to cover it. It's not going to be the news. Obviously it was. Papers were full with the photographs, and I didn't go to school for 2 weeks. That's one story. Second story happened many years later after the Yom Kippur War. I went to school. I went to do my master's and PhD in New York. And I was, I was trying to get a job at the consulate, and I was being interviewed by security. We're talking in '74, no computers. The guy was writing by hand for 3 hours, and he was writing. Asked me all sort of questions. Then we read last page. Was anybody in your family ever involved in politics? I said yes. Who and what that might be? I said my grandfather. He wasn't too interested. He said, who was your grandfather? I said, David Ben-Gurion, and he tore the whole batch of sheets and threw them away. I said, you're an idiot. You're absolutely idiot. I mean, not only did you wait 3 hours interviewing me, the fact that my grandfather is Ben-Gurion doesn't say anything about me, in that sense. I mean, yeah. So those are the two stories. So that's what's growing up as a child and a young man as Ben-Gurion grandson.
You've felt those expectations because he imposed those on his grandson?
No.
Self-imposed.
No. The environment. No, he never expressed any expectations. The only expectation or hope that he ever expressed was that I'll be at least taller than him. I wasn't told as a child. He used to measure me against the wall, and once I passed his height, and that was okay. But
yeah, at 5 feet tall, that wasn't a big challenge for the grandson.
No, that was a big challenge, but he was worried. No, he never expressed his expectation, but that's the environment you grow up in, and it's I mean,
if your grandfather was alive today, what do you think? What would his feelings be about where Israel is? Maybe positively and also constructively.
Well, I try not to interpret what my grandfather would think. Other people seem to feel that they do. I don't. But I do know that some of the values that he believed in and tried to promote seem to be eroding now. First, there's a word in Hebrew. I don't think it has an equivalent in English, which is mamlachtiyut. Mamlachtiyut is being oneness of people with the country. Okay, it's sort of unification, but it's more than unification. And Ben-Gurion believed in it. He believed in one people. He believed in one language. He believed in one army. He believed in one educational system, though it didn't work out. That was one of his values. And as we look around, obviously we see that is not the case. We still have one army, but other than that, we've become from unified people or so-called unified people, become into many tribes. So that's one of the values that we promote. The other thing that he believed in, many things, but the other thing that he believed in, that Israel power obviously was based on military power and economic ability, but mostly on being just and knowledgeable. Or lagoim.
Yeah.
Now, anybody can make his own mind whether we are or lagoim.
Which means light unto the nations for
light unto the nation. Being light unto the nation is a quality of being just. Mm-hmm. Not just being right, but being just. So, Again, I don't want to get into politics, and I have, as I said before, I have very few views, but I don't think that's what the audience wants to hear, and I'm not going to get into that.
I mean,
But
one of the
that's-
best things about Ben-Gurion University is that we're apolitical, right? I mean, we're about education,
Absolutely,
advancing
absolutely,
the country forward.
absolutely. Listen, I think whether you agree with that government or that government, that's the only state we have, and that's where we live, and that's where we struggle, and that's it.
There was a picture you showed me before with when you're sitting on his lap.
I always sat on his lap. For some reason, I always sat on his lap. So we had a whole argument about being a favorite grandchild. I'm not sure that indicates that I was a favorite grandchild, but I was always on his lap. He was always interested in school. He was always interested in what I read. The book was always a present, and I got books all the time, even for my first wedding. I mean, that was, people need washing machines, people need ovens, people need apartments, but I got books. I mean, that was the way. That was the way.
Yeah, that seemed to be how he really acquired his knowledge, right? For those who
absolutely, he acquired his knowledge through books.
There are 20,000 books in the Tel Aviv home, something like 5,000 in Sde-Boker.
Right, and he studied languages, so he could read getting Don Quixote in Spanish, and he could read the philosophers in Greek, and he read. And he studied, and he had a wonderful capacity and curiosity, unequaled.
Yeah. Well, I believe he spoke six languages. That's my understanding.
Well, he obviously speaks English, Polish, Russian, Hebrew. I'm sure he spoke a little Arabic, but that's not the thing. Not what he spoke. It's how he studied, and he had a thirst for knowledge that I've never seen anybody.
Let's talk a little bit about the Negev. We're very proud at Ben-Gurion University to carry the name of the founder and first prime minister, and in many ways be a manifestation of what he was trying to accomplish. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, why the Negev captured his imagination so much, why he felt it was so critical for the future of Israel.
Putting Sde-Boker aside, I think Sde-Boker for Ben-Gurion was something special. Okay, joining a group of young idealists was special. But he said many things about the Negev. One thing he said, that if we don't conquer the desert, the Negev, he said, the desert is going to conquer us. Now, obviously, the literal translation of such a phrase is obvious. Okay. You're talking about the desert. If you don't cultivate the desert, eventually the desert is going to conquer anything else. But I think, and I'll give another example, remind me about television. I think that Ben-Gurion thought was deeper than that. Yeah. In most things. I think a desert is also scant knowledge. I think desert is also shallow politics. I think desert is also, and if we don't conquer that sort of desert, that desert is going to swallow us. Yeah. And that's why I think Ben-Gurion University gives an answer to both those problems. Yeah. It's right at the heart of the Negev, right in the heart of the physical desert, and it's a source of knowledge.
Another one of his great quotes was that it was in the desert or in the Negev that the creativity and pioneering vigor of Israel would be tested, because to make the desert bloom, you had to create something from nothing.
And the desert is blooming, but on one hand, the desert is blooming. On the other hand, if you see what's happening in the desert in terms of violence and hatred and lack of government, I'm not talking about a specific government, but I'm talking about general government, then you see the danger of that desert.
Yeah, you get the sense today that he would be so proud of Israel's accomplishments, but also that there's a lot of work to do.
There's always a lot of work to do. You know, for many people, once the state of Israel was created, that was the end of the story. We have a state. Everything is fine. But you remember from epilogue. He said that is only the beginning. We have so much work to do. That's the beginning of the dream. It's not the end. It's not the realization of the dream.
He talks in the movie also quite a bit about Am Segula. Could you help interpret what that meaning is, maybe for Ben-Gurion, for the audience?
Well, Am Segula is special people. It's not a literal translation, but that's the best I can come up with now. It's a special people. Now, the many definition of special people, you know, the people who view the Jews as a special people, whose views of the Jews as special people is totally different from Ben-Gurion's. In order to be a special person, it's people. It's not enough for you to be Jews. It's not even enough for you to follow the laws. It's not even enough for you to read the Torah. It's not even enough for you to understand the Tanakh. Okay, that does not make you a special person. What makes you a special people is, I think, light unto nation, being right, being magnanimous. I think that what makes you Am Segula. If I interpret my grandfather right, and I think I do. There are two kinds of people, or if you like, the two kinds of processes, thinking processes. One is called a process-oriented thinking. That's the way most of us think in everyday life. Like, okay, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to eat, I'm going to drive a car, I'm going to read a book. Those are all processes. They're based on the fact that you have means, you apply them in some way, and hopefully you reach your goal. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Then there's another thinking process, which is target-oriented process, which is completely different. In target-oriented thinking, you choose the target, you mark it, then you find the means, and you apply them. Now, Ben-Gurion had a target. It was target-oriented thinking. That was his way of thinking. He had a target. The means would change, the applications would change, but the target will be constant. And that's why so many people at different points in life feel that they're Ben-Gurionists, although they come from different camps. But those were only the means. The target never varied. Now, if he used process-oriented thinking, the state of Israel wouldn't have been created. Because we had no means, obviously nothing to apply. But because he had target-oriented thinking, he decided there's going to be a state. Actually, they built the substructure, wasn't it? The state is going to be, and then you find the means. And then you find the means, and the means were found, and the state was created. That's Ben-Gurion.
Mushi, do you have any mementos from your grandfather?
Yeah, I've photographs of him and things, but the most important memento I have is a watch that my grandmother and my grandfather gave me for my bar mitzvah, and I'm holding it here, and I've been wearing it. I don't always for the last 30 or 35 years. And it's engraved, and it says to Moshe, because that's my given name, upon reaching your bar mitzvah, from Savta and Saba, grandmother and grandfather, Paula and David, Ben-Gurion, and the date.
Any closing comments, Mushi? This has been a really great interview.
I wish you all the success in the world. Your success is mine. You're doing a wonderful job.
It was great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, I'm yours.
Wow. Thank you, Mushi, so much for joining us and shedding even more light on the incredible life of your grandfather, and for continuing his vital legacy, and for all the tremendous work that you've done with the pressure of being his grandson. So I also want to thank everyone for joining us today for Ben-Gurion Day in the USA, the first time ever. The program isn't quite finished yet, but it's so wonderful that you celebrated the life and legacy of David Ben-Gurion Israel's founder, first prime minister, and namesake of our university. David Ben-Gurion had many great quotes, but one of my favorite is that he said, in Israel, in order to be a realist, you have to believe in miracles. And today, thanks to the miracles of modern technology, you've had the possibility of experiencing this hybrid virtual experience. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. And if you haven't had enough, please save the date, April 23rd, 2023, for Celebrating the Remarkable 3, Pioneering Medical Science. It's Americans for Ben-Gurion University's signature virtual annual event, and we're bringing it again next year on April 23rd, 2023. You'll be able to take a look at BGU's groundbreaking advances in medicine that are transforming Israel and the world. You won't want to miss this program. Thank you again for joining us today. We have a little intro video for the Celebrating the Remarkable 3.